reading through your files, and we will talk more about your projects on Thursday. So we can, you guys can also present your work, and we can look at that, we can critique, and I want everyone to participate so that, the presenter can, learn from that and benefit from that. So that's what I intend to do on this coming Thursday. Today, it's going to be a little more theory, but we also need to talk about the final project. So what we need to accomplish for that. So for that reason, let me, I have this really old presentation for my web design classes. I'm just going to open this, and it's going to give us a little bit of idea what we are doing. And at the same time, we also need to see if I can find this. Okay, before I present, let me share my screen with you. Okay, can you see my screen?
I can't, no.
No.
No. Okay, let's see what's going on. Okay, can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay, this screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so for the final project, so this is what I was thinking of. Flowchart, okay. So once we come up with the idea what needs to be created, and I'm going to talk more about that, how to create an idea and where we want to take the final project. But we will be developing a flowchart. Obviously, we will be doing wireframes, very important. So wireframes are, once again, they are not mock-ups, but they are just structure of your website with no rendering details in there. Then we are going to create some mock-ups. Mock-ups, the best way to explain mock-ups is that mock-ups are like rendered sort of a contract between you and your client that what will be developed, okay? We also need to work on creative brief. I'm also going to go in detail on what needs to be included. And in my Google Drive, under assets, I've also dropped some templates for you guys to take advantage of writing creative brief. Obviously, what we are building over here is prototypes, okay? So once after that, we'll start building our prototype. So your presentation is part of your final. It's not just that you will be just delivering your project, but you are also going to be presenting your work. And your presentations have the most weight to your final project. Okay, so we'll talk more about how to present. I don't need to show a lot about how to present, because usually in my classes when students are presenting, I let them come up with their own strategy of how to present their work, strategy in which they feel comfortable. Because when you're making presentations, it's a very excuse me, it's a very important that you feel comfortable while you are delivering your work to the audience. Obviously, what I want from you is a link to the published site on Adobe Creative Cloud. Okay, now link is important, but at the same time, I do want your MP4 files, which are the MP4 video files, which you can save. the reason why I need these is, first of all, I should have a hard copy of your work. Secondly, these links, if you modify it, if you move anything, so these are temporary, okay? So I do need a hard copy of your work because I will be submitting your work to the school, okay? So for the accreditation process, okay? So your final presentations will be maximum, I shouldn't say minimum, so 5 minutes, 5 minutes maximum, okay? So when you're presenting your work, so it's not a very long presentation, but within this five minutes are usually, you know, they are quite long to present your work. So that's where we are going. All right. So we'll come back to this document, and I might even modify this, but I will be putting this in your assets folder so that you know what needs to be created. So before we talk about that, so let me open this presentation and let's see if I can. Okay, so this is more like my presentation screen, so I'm just going to go over this. For some reason, my second monitor, so let me try that one more time, sorry. See if I can share the other screen with you. Okay, can you see my full screen now?
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right, so so this is an old presentation, but you know, although in our class we are mostly creating mock-ups and prototypes, but this is going to give you a little bigger picture of when you're working on these type of projects. So, so what are the effective steps of the process? So, excuse me. So we are looking at, first of all, analysis of your information and the content which will be developed. We need to talk about target audience. You know, we've gone over this, but this is more like a revision for us at this point. And checklists. Oops, sorry. Go back over here. Okay, so the checklist, you know, we'll go over some checklists and see, you know, what we need to look at. Organize. So we need to come up with a plan of how your users are going to navigate between your program. And navigation is a very essential part of web design or application design or any type of interactive project. So how people are going to go from one section to the other or one point to the other, or if they click on something, what will happen? Okay, so navigation strategies are important. If we look at some common websites, you know, sometimes the navigation can be at the top, close to the banner. They might be on the left-hand side, and some multimedia contents, you can have a navigation panel, which is like a floating panel, which can be used to click on and to go and do anything in there. So either way, One of the type of navigations which we created was that drop-down menu, that hamburger menu. So that is another strategy. So we need to come up with a good navigation strategy for our final project. Content is important. Page layout. So I'm going to talk a little more in detail about these when we go through the presentation, but this is more like, what we are going to talk about. Page layout, page design, develop web page layouts again, site layouts. Okay, so each page has its own layout, but what is the layout of your site? Okay, web page construction, graphic techniques, implement user interaction. So yeah, you have a navigation going, but how are your audience or the users going to interact? Okay, so what type of strategies are we using? How are we making things easier for the users? Okay, talk about final checklist and of course FTPs. FTP, anyone remembers what FTP is? So when you're working on your projects, let's say that these are the prototypes, okay, which you're building. And in order for the audience to see that, so you have to put it on the web or on the server or on the main web pipeline, okay? So in order to transfer files from your computer to the server, so you are going to use one of the protocols which we use is called File Transfer Protocol, FTP. Most common way of taking files from your computer and putting them onto the servers where people can see them. Okay. So there are different ways. Nowadays, your web browsers have built-in FTP. Okay. Before that, you have to open a separate program to FTP your files. Okay. So once your files are there, obviously, when people start working on your projects or they are going to visit your projects and they start clicking around, so you may want to get some feedback from them. And based on that, you can fine tune your work. If something is not working or something is a little hard for the user, so that is a good time to fine tune your work. Once your final site is published, so marketing, okay, how will you market? How will you make sure that people are going to visit your site? Okay, they know you are there. And what is your site doing? Either you're selling your projects or you're trying to provide information or whatever the goal or the reason for your website is. But how do people know about you? Because there are millions of websites which are out there. So you are competing with them. So you need to put yourself out there. So marketing becomes important. Optimization. So over here, it is more like marketing optimization, your SEO, search engine optimizations. So SEOs is, for example, Google or Yahoo. These are search engines. So when people are looking for something, so they put in a keyword and number of websites come up. So how do you optimize your work? So that is another thing which is involved in your web development and maintenance project. And of course, analyzing the traffic, how many people are coming, how many people are visiting such a particular page on your website, or how many people are clicking to buy stuff. So again, those analyses are done. So this is all on the business side of the work. So what we are doing over here is more of creating the visual end of this. All right, so now let's just quickly talk about analysis. So when you will be coming up with your idea, and I think I asked you to think about what do you want to do for a final project. So hopefully you guys have already developed an idea. But to keep that in mind, so what you want to do. So either you are promoting your ideas, hobbies, or beliefs to, or you are trying to advertising company or a product, make load of money. Okay, so maybe uh, it's a shopping engine or shopping cart, or you're trying to sell T-shirts, or you're trying to sell your prints if you are an artist, or photographs, or if you make greeting cards. So how do you make money? Provide customer service and support. Okay, so obviously when people start coming, so you are a business, and how do you provide that? So you also need to think about these things when you're developing. Uh, how do you keep your customer base informed? Okay, so you may want to create, for example, frequently asked question section, or nowadays you can also have a live feedback, or if somebody has a question, so they can either chat, or they can have an audio conversation with somebody on the other end. So those are some of the strategies which can be implemented. So create an extended business card for your company. So what are your goals? So if it's just going to be a simple website, and you just want to create a presence, so that can be a website too. All right. So anyway, so this is more about analyzing what needs to be created. So you need to come up with the idea and say, hey, you know what, this is what we want to create, and this is what the goal will be. Okay. So once again, remember who your target audience is going to be. You need to know the demographics. For example, the age group of your users, their skill level with the internet. Nowadays, everyone is skilled. Everyone knows how to get online and do stuff. Okay. How can I communicate effectively with the audience? You need to know that. You also need to determine the purpose of your site. Okay, so we have already talked a little bit about that. Okay, so I'm just going to go really quickly through this. I'm not going to spend too much time. Okay. Okay. Hi, Monica. Your mic is open.
Is it on?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, here we go. Okay, so again, these are some of the analytical questions you should ask. Who's my target audience? How can I communicate effectively? What information do I need? Okay. Another important thing is to do some research, okay? And research on other websites. So if there are other websites who are using the same business model, or who are using the same type of communication goal outside. So so you should look at them and how they are doing things. And so spend time looking at other internet sites, particularly your competitors. See if you can get any ideas you can use and improve on. So don't be mistaken that the flashiest, coolest looking website is the best. Okay. So you're not just looking at all the bells and whistles, but you're looking at the strategies these websites are using in order to get to the audience, because that is the actual goal. Sites with lots of animation are not always the best, okay? I remember those days when Flash was new and all the new websites which are coming out, so everything is moving and all the stuff. But again, uh, animations can be quite distracting. So yeah, you can have things moving, but at the same time, uh, remember what the goal of your projects are. Okay, so we don't worry too much about how fast the internet connections your users will be using, but in the past it was very important. But if you are trying to create a website where your audiences are uh, uh, at that part of the world where the technology has not developed that much, so you will definitely need to keep that in mind. All right, so what content, data, graphics, photos? Again, you need to make an inventory of what needs to be used in order to create your websites. It is important because sometimes you will find things which are already there. Let's say if you are doing a website for a company, you can ask them for their logos, if they already have some existing brochures, or if they have any other multimedia projects, like some companies may have their old CDs or DVDs. So you may want to ask them for that. So this is where you need to find what is available, what needs to be created, and based on that, so you're going to move ahead. And we are still talking a little bit about your audience and analysis and how old they are, where they work, and all the stuff. So this is more like knowing your audience. Okay, this is important. So remember, what is the goal of your project? Okay, write it down, maybe in a line or 2 lines. So the key thing to remember about audience analysis is the goal, to have a well-defined audience at the end of the process. The only good audience definition is a specific target definition. The better you can pigeonhole or niche your audience, the more likely your site will succeed. Okay. Okay, so once your site, let's say the site is up. Okay, so this is the last screen I'm going to use, and then I'm going to switch. So your site, remember your site is not like something once you finish it and it is done. It is a complete, it is a process. It is a site which keeps changing. Okay, so web development is a continuous process. Okay, so your websites are never done. So you are frequently updating your information. Okay, so you may want to look at, if it's for a company, so your product and company articles, questions and answers. We talked a little bit about that. So frequently asked question section, online purchasing or products, shopping carts, guest book that your guests to your site can sign, and so it's all about communication. So it's all about getting to your audience, okay, getting to your customer, and making them involved with your communication goals. So website forum or chat rooms, website search. So you may want to give them the option to search your website. You can include like weekly polls, or so you can set up polls in your website, so where people can see what is popular. For example, quizzes and sweepstakes, and these are all different ideas which can help you when you're working on your site. So what to include? Okay. So news, unique information, location maps, contact and booking forms, and etc. etc. So a lot of things can go on your website. All you have to do is to think about. Okay, some tips, quick tips. These are quick 10 tips for you guys. Once you know your audience, keep web pages short. Okay, in other words, make them simple. Nobody likes to read chapters and chapters of information on a website. Okay, so in other words, limit the amount of text. Avoid large images. This is kind of depending upon the bandwidth of your user and how fast things can load. Nowadays, it's not that much of a problem, so you can upload larger high resolution images, but remember, the larger the image, it may take a little longer for them to load, especially on the networks and the web. Use web safe colors. We didn't talk too much about colors over here. Mind you, this the U in colors over here. So I went to an Irish Catholic school, so sometimes I can write British spelling. So just keep that in mind. English spellings. Clearly identify all links. Okay. Check spellings. Something which is very important for me because I'm a little dyslexic. I can make a lot of spelling errors. So if you are publishing something, go through spell checks. But remember, spell checks may not catch all your spelling errors. So it's a good idea to have somebody read your work so that if there are any errors which were missed by your spell check. How many people use Grammarly website? Okay, it's a free service. Again, if it can check your grammar as well as spellings. So I will highly recommend. So Grammarly I don't know if it's .com or .org, but you can check that. You don't need to create sitemaps these days. But if it is a complex website, so in that case, you may want to create a sitemap just to orient the users where they are and how to access different parts of your website. Okay, so all your links should be checked. You don't want to get those 404 errors, and make sure that you are testing your website and make sure all your links are working. And yeah, I think I don't want to go into more details over here. Any feedback from you guys? Does it give you a good picture of when you are coming up with the idea, or let's say if you were working commercially for a client, okay, and what you should be looking at? Okay, so just remember, your websites or these apps you are going to create, all these websites or apps have a communication goal. Okay, so in order to fulfill that communication goal, so you need to have a good overall experience and overall information about what needs to be created for your project to be successful. Okay. All right. Any questions so far?
How can you tell if it's a web safe color?
Oh, that's a good question over here. Let me, there are charts, okay? And if you don't have charts, so if you're using any, let's say Adobe software, you can easily find those web safe palettes. Okay, so let me open Photoshop over here quickly just to show you. Okay, so I'm in Photoshop over here, and let's say if I click on the color chip over here.
We're still looking at your PowerPoint.
Okay, so I'm on a different screen. Okay, right here. Okay, so any of the design software can also give you access to different color modes and color palettes. Okay, I just created this document, and let's just put some color over here. Okay. Okay, so what is that red I'm painting with? So if you want to know what that red is, the easiest way will be if you go to your tools panel, and if you double click on the color chip. Okay, so this is the color picker dialog box. This is not coming from Photoshop. This color picker dialog box is part of the operating system. So what you're looking at this point is a color picker of Mac operating system, because I'm using Mac. Windows operating system color picker will be similar. There might be a slight difference in a look and feel, but basically it will be this. It will be similar. Okay. Now, if you notice that this is what this color is visually, okay, in this area, and these numbers over here, okay, so these are 5 different color models, okay, 5 different ways you look at color. On my computer, if you notice that this color mode, which is HSB color mode, is selected over here. So if you see one of these, we call them radio buttons active, so that means that this model is active over here. So if I click on R or G or B over here, so this is the RGB color model over here, okay? And then this is your CMYK color model, okay? So you can, so now this is not an active color model, but again, you can change these numbers. There is another color model called lab color model, which is composed of channels, okay? The lightness channel and then A or B channel. How to describe these in very short, if you want to understand, how we, let's say, if we want to look at a certain place on Earth, we can figure out, so what is the X and the Y axis on the map will be, or if it's a 3D, so what will also be a Z axis. So these are those values or the components of your X, Y, and Z values in a LAB color model. Okay, so you are putting these numbers. So it's like, your color is all the colors are placed in a container. Okay, so if it's a LAB container, so where will this red color be located over there? So the values will be 58, 87, 100, and so on. Okay. Now, what is important, what Lisa's question was over here, or was it Elise or?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So you see these numbers over here. These are 6 letters. Okay, they can be letters or numbers. Okay, so these are called hexadecimal codes. So these are this is the color model which is used for web design. Okay, so in if I click on this green over here, so you can see the hexadecimal values change. Okay, so 009900 is this particular green. Okay, so when you're designing at that time, it does not matter if you're working in RGB color mode. CMYK, I will stay away from it, especially when we are creating web pages or apps which are going to be seen on some sort of a device or on computer screens. So you can work with either HSB or RGB color model. But if you are writing code, for example, if you're writing HTML code, so you may need to know these the hexadecimal codes of your colors in the color palette you are going to choose for your website. Okay, so that is a quick way of explaining. Now, if I also look at the swatches over here, let me bring the swatches we can see. So on my computer, so this was the swatch I was using, but again, your Photoshop comes with different color palettes, okay, which you can access over here. So this is the basic RGB color palette, okay, some CMYK colors. Now, if you notice, I don't know if you can see it very well on your screens, or there's a slight difference between similar colors because the color space of RGB is much larger than CMYK. So not all the colors which are possible on RGB can be printed in the process colors. CMYK is your printing process, which is usually used in offset printing, where you are creating 4 different plates to create a full color image on paper. Okay, so the color space which can be created by inks is much smaller than what can be produced on the screen, so RGB. So grayscale, pastels, and so, but if you notice right over here, see if I can open it up a little more. So these are some of the swatches that come with Photoshop, okay? And I'm not looking at seeing all my, because I just updated my Photoshop, so my panels are looking, I mean, my palettes are looking a little bit different. But if you notice that in the swatches panel, there is a drop-down menu over here, just like a hamburger menu. So if I click over here, so you can access, okay, you can create a new swatch and legacy swatches, probably that's what I should be looking at. I think they changed something recently. Anyway, so let's just take a look. Okay, so you can select a swatch, you can save it. But what I'm looking at is libraries. Okay, I will have to look into it, but it looks like they removed the library because you could access Pantone colors and web colors and all the stuff. So I'll have to look into it. So let me double check over here. So if I create a new swatch group over here, let's say group number 1, so I can create a new group. And this is where you're creating these new groups. And you're adding a color. And whatever color is selected, so it is selecting my background color at this point. So if I switch colors, so if I add a color, so now it's adding my red color. And Creative Cloud Libraries, it's taking me directly to this website. Okay, I'll have to double check because I think I read that somewhere that libraries are removed. I think everything is going online, so everything will be in cloud. So let's see. Okay, so this is color.adobe.com. Okay. I think everything is going to be moving over here. So a little bit of history about this. There were certain websites which developed something like this. Before Adobe, there was a British website called Color Lovers. So once again, COLOUR, colorlover.com. So that was a website where you can upload your images and you can create your own color palettes and all the stuff. So Adobe created a similar experience by a website called Kuler. And that Kuler has been evolved into color.adobe.com. So now you can access this website from any of your Adobe applications, okay? And if you notice on the left-hand side, if you know your color theory, so we are looking at analogous colors over here, monochromatic colors, triad colors, complementary colors, and split complementary. And so again, these are all those color harmonies they are talking about. And let's see where the web colors are over here. Okay, so another thing, if you notice, once again, guys, so this is also something new for me, but if you notice that on the right-hand side, okay, where it says my color themes. So at this time, I'm using my Adobe software. I'm a paid subscriber, and this is where I am. And these are my colors. So now it looks like, you know, we have to save everything in cloud. Okay, so my library, my downloads. There was a project I was working on, the Lahore project, and so these are all my projects. And if I'm saving any templates or anything, so they will show up over here. Okay, so you can create a new library over here. So you can actually create your own. Now, answer to your question, Elise. Web safe colors, these are 200 and I believe it's like 225, 226 colors. Okay. Nowadays, it doesn't matter that much But if you are going to create a website for government or for schools, at that time, it may matter because there are some restrictions, because I would say accessibility restrictions, that your website should be accessible to everyone who is out there. And even if somebody is using a really old browser, maybe they're using Netscape. We haven't heard about Netscape in million years now. But let's say if they're using Netscape and they're still using some old computer, so they should also be served with your website. So at that time, you may want to restrict your colors to that particular, I think it's 240 some colors, which is there.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So hopefully, so I'm going to do a little more research and get back to you on this, because it just caught me off guard, because you could see all the colors, panels, or your libraries from Photoshop. So it looks like they have moved things.
Yeah, it's weird because I know you can still see them in like Illustrator or InDesign or something where you
Right.
can look at all the color libraries, but
Right. Right. So again, check out your software packages. So maybe if they have changed that in Photoshop, so obviously it looks like they may be changing that in other software too. So keep that in mind. Okay, so where were we? Okay, I found this document. I thought it was very interesting. It's the 5 W's of website evaluation. Okay, so for example, who, you need to know the who's. Who wrote the pages, and are they an expert? Now, this is something from the point of view evaluation of if your audience have to evaluate a website. Okay, so when you're developing your website, you need to keep that in mind, that what users will be thinking. So your website should look authentic. Okay, your website should look that somebody with authority has created or written the content for the website. So for example, who wrote the pages, and are they an expert? Is a biography of the author included? So if reputable papers or reputable content should always have an author. Okay, so keep these things in mind, because when your websites are out there, since you are competing with so many different or millions of other websites, so the authenticity of your content becomes really important. And nowadays, terms like fake this and fake news and fake that is all out there. So how do you make sure that the information you are providing your users will be able to look at? So they will be trying to figure out, for example, who is creating that? How can I find out more about the author? Then they will be looking at what does the author say is the purpose of the site? What else might be the author have in mind for the site? What makes the site easy to use? What information is included, and does this information differ from other sites? Okay, so basically what we are trying to say here is that your content which you are creating, make sure that it has some sort of authenticity, because when your website goes up there, it gets published, and when you publish something, so it needs to be something with authority, okay? That, hey, people can quote you, people can believe in you, people can take references from you, okay? So when was the site created? So somewhere, if you are putting your copyright information or somewhere, you should also include the publication date, which is very important because the nature of websites is that it can be updated, it can be changed, it can be removed, it can, so publication date somewhere, it can be in some sort of a fine print, hidden, but at least your audience should know that if they are reading your content, how current your content is, okay? Then of course, where does the information come from? Where can you, so again, it's a good idea to, if you are getting information from somewhere else, do your references, okay? Just like any college paper you write, okay? So you have to quote the references in that paper. So don't think that your websites are different, okay? So in order for your website to be authentic, so you need to put those references, okay? And of course, why? Why is this information useful for my purpose? Why should I use this information? Why is this page better than another? So these are the questions which your users are asking, okay? So in order for them to, let's say if you want your site to be rated, so these are some of the things your audience will be looking at in order to rate your site, okay? So hopefully this information also, um, you don't have to write it down, but just keep that in mind, that when you are putting your content out there, okay, so so you need to make sure that your content has a value, and your content does not fall into a place where you can get any sort of a negative about your um, website, okay? So just like nowadays everything about rating, so in order to keep the ratings of your website, so authenticity of your website is important. Okay, so I've also put this document in your assets folder on the Google Drive, okay? So any questions so far?
For the final project, does it matter if it's a desktop or a mobile format?
uh, in That's what I was thinking, that it can be either, so that should be fine.
Okay.
But for extra credits, if you can create both layouts,
Okay.
so that we can see that how your web page is going to look on a desktop and how it's going to look on a mobile device. So that will be for extra credits. But I think yeah, either one is fine, but it's up to you if you want to go for extra credits.
Okay.
All right, so that's a
Sounds
good
good.
question. Yeah. All right, so let me just stop sharing now. Okay guys, so once again, develop the concept. Next time what we will be also looking at are your proposals, and I also had one more thing for to be shared, and that is another document which I put in there. So I'll just start sharing my screen once again. Okay, so one of the things you guys need to write is a creative brief. Okay, so this is sort of steps of the uh, steps in a template for you. Okay, so which you will be. So first of all, background. So you can summarize your program and what you want to achieve from your website. Okay. So for example, when we were doing the landing pages, so, what do we want the page to do? Either it's going to be a lead generation page, or if just going to be there to provide information, or you want them to click on a coupon to take advantage of that. So again, with a little background, okay, so summarize uh, this, what this program will achieve. How will you measure the success of this program is a very important question over here. So when you are creating a website, so once your website is done, so what will be the criterias of uh, finding out that your website is successful? Okay. So these usually this information in a creative brief is between you and your clients. Okay, and you are interviewing them, but at the same time you are doing research, and then you are creating this creative brief template or creative brief document with which you can communicate either between you and your team, or your team and your clients. Okay, uh, and these are based on your research and your plans, what needs to be done. So the audience, who is the primary audience? So we've talked a lot about that. You should also know your secondary audience. Okay, so who is the first, primary audience, and where you are getting to. So for example, if you're selling a box of, let's say, cereal, okay, so your primary audience can be the parents. Your secondary audience will be if that box is going to have some sort of a puzzle or something which is on there, which can also attract kids. Okay, so same thing over here. So your objectives are important. What objectives you're trying to achieve? What are the priorities of those objectives? Can you suggest strategy or positioning to achieve a objective? So what is positioning, guys? Any marketing students over here? So, in simple language, which market are you trying to access? Okay. So if you are creating a project which is going to be for children, okay, and so, or teenage market, or so in order to reach them, so where will your website should stand, or if your website will be from marketing point of view put out there, okay, so in what category it will fall into. Okay, so that is how you are going to position your project. Okay, so where it will lie in all the other things which are out there. The message should be very clear. If you could get one sentence through all the clutter, what would that be? So what is going to be the message of your website in just one sentence? Try to come up with a sentence when you're writing a creative brief. Okay. If they ask you to prove it, how would you do that? What other major points do you want to communicate? Okay, so your message should be simple enough to be explained in just one simple sentence. Okay, what do you want to achieve? Yeah, you know, if you are you know, creating a website to promote stamps. I don't know if anyone is a stamp collector over here. So you know, so your message can be that I want to show my collection of stamps. Okay, in just one simple sentence. So you know, whatever your project is going to be, so come up with the message in one sentence. The medium, what is the best way to reach the audience? For us, it is simple. You know, our vehicle of delivering our message is the internet. Okay. Are there any other ways the same message can be delivered? You know, what can be other ways of delivery of that? So although it is internet, maybe it can also be put on kiosks in different places. So if your website is about, for example, you know, where people can find out where, you know, like on a train station. So what trains are coming and what trains will, you know, have you know, seats available and all the stuff. So if it is that sort of a project, so yeah, the information can be on the web as well as it can be on mobile devices, or it can be on a stationary kiosk or sitting somewhere on a train station or something. Or maybe, you know, if anyone does not have access to uh, the internet, so information can be put on a CD-ROM, or CD-ROMs are obsolete, maybe DVD, and you know, at least they can have a catalog of, you know, what trains are coming and all the stuff. Okay, so think of you know, beyond just your own medium of delivery. So also think, and you know, what other ways people can access that information. So anything else, if you want to include that, you need to know in creative brief what is the deadline. In our case, the deadline is easy. Okay, it's going to be the final day of our class. Okay, our presentation day. Okay. Budget, again, you know, when you're doing a school project, it becomes a little difficult, but I just want you to just come up with some numbers over here. They don't need to be accurate, but the reason I want you to do this is so that when you are doing actual projects out there in the industry, so you need to think about, you know, so what can go in a budget, okay? Anyone?
Photo studio, maybe to take pictures of the product.
Right, so you know, not just the pictures, but basically, you know, how much money your client is willing to spend, and within that budget, how much you can do for them. So that is important over here, because as you know, there's a saying in my language is that more sugar you put, the sweeter it will get. Okay, so you know, these projects can be done with a you know, in a very small budget. Okay, but you know, these websites can even cost like millions of dollars. Okay, so it depends upon how much information, how much time, how much resources you guys have. Okay, so these are usually the questions which a project manager thinks about and answers. But at the same time, you know, since we are learning, so we should not be just focused towards the design. We should look at the big picture, and it becomes a little easier for you when you are working within a team, So you also start thinking from other team members' point of view. For example, project manager may be thinking based on how much money they have or how much money they can make and what can be included in what. As a designer, if I don't think about that, I want to do a lot, but what is possible? So what are the limitations? So budgets are usually linked to that. Okay. So it can also include that if there's only one person working on the project or 5 people, if you want to include a photographer, if you want to include an animator, you want to include a HTML coder, if the database is involved, so you need a programmer, a database programmer involved, and so more people get involved. Okay, so the budget gets higher and higher. So think about that. When you're creating a creative brief, I don't want to go in, I'm not asking you to go in details, but just in simple line or two, yes, and say, hey, you know what, basically this is the budget, okay? And so we have to stay within this budget, okay? So it can be anything for the school purposes. And a very important question, whenever you do any project, it doesn't matter if it's a web design or a print project or anything you are doing, you need to know who is the person who has the final say. Who is the person who is going to be writing the checks? Okay, so you need to keep that in mind. So this is a creative brief. So use this sort of a template. You can copy this information in a Word document and just fill up those points for your final project. And this is also a graded assignment which you are going to turn in. Okay. All right. So I will let you work on your projects. So on Thursday, everyone knows what we are doing. And so as far as to know more about XD, just keep looking at those tutorials. I also will recommend going to other free information. You don't have to spend money. There's a lot of information which is out there. You can go to YouTube and find more about XD. And also, I think there is Adobe has a weekly, or I think it's a weekly creative challenge. So if you go to Adobe's website and go to the XD part of it, so you may find, I think I'll send you a link over there. So even if you are not part of a challenge, so you can also go and look at, what other people are submitting. Okay, so that is another good place where you can find how people are using XD. Okay, so keep that in mind, that Adobe XD is once again an evolving program. It is constantly changing. So you may have noticed that every week you have to update your program because they are adding more and more stuff to it. So more information you have, so the better you can be with your projects. So anyway, so we will discuss more about XD next time, but just remember that Thursday, the existing projects you have, so we will be looking at that. We will be having a little bit of a critique. I don't want to spend too much time on critique, so probably we'll spend an hour or so. It's not a big class over here, so we have like 7-8 people in the class. And then we will also be looking into some more techniques or any other things which we can use with XD.